Yeah, we
That's who
just
we
get
are.
it's the way we are, you know. But no, that's funny though, because that's the experience of having of that timelessness in a way. It's like because the thing is, people sometimes see you not as you actually are, but how they think you are.
Yeah.
And so, of course, sometimes it can be beneficial, it can be a compliment. Sometimes it's negative, depends on how they see you.
Yeah, it's funny when I was telling Barry, he was on another podcast earlier this week with somebody else.
I wasn't too timing.
I share him. And he mentioned something that had been my personal experience, that when we were younger, people guessed us older. And now in our 30s, it was funny that it was the same decade, people started guessing us younger. And one of the things that happened in my 30s was men who were generally in their 40s would ask me out. And when we'd get to talking, it was so obvious I was too old for them because they thought I was younger. And they really wanted somebody younger. And I said, it's not who I am, hon. You know, I think we need to pass on each other. I always thought they were very interesting and fascinating. And I didn't have a care. I dated both directions, still do, younger or older. But it was really obvious they wanted somebody less mature. And I was like, okie dokie.
Yeah.
There you go.
Which
So talking about maturity, yes.
As I say, that might relate to the topic today, but anyway, get to that. So let's jump in.
Okay. So today, and I was thinking, wow, there are so many directions to come with this. I'm so excited that how to date someone with children. So if you have children, if they have children, if you have your birth children living with you young, or if you have your birth children living with you and they're adults, or you have your birth children's children, because there's lots of people in our age group that are partially raising, fully raising their grandchildren, and all the challenges, the conversations that need to be had with you and the kids, and the pacing. So, oh my gosh, this is going to be such a great subject, I think.
Yeah, one of the fundamental pieces, of course, is when do you introduce them, or when do you let your kids know you're dating someone? Those are the key questions a lot of people ask all the time, because they're kind of like, when should I do that? I'm not sure. Or should I even,
Yeah.
So yeah.
It's interesting because it's no matter if you have younger children or adult children, under 18 and over 18, sometimes by a lot, you still generally need to tell them at some point. But what I believe is a real hard fact for me is if you're going to date with children under 18, they get an opinion. Once it's time to tell them, they get an opinion.
Yeah.
And when they're over 18, they don't get a vote. They get an opinion, but they don't get a vote. And they really think they get votes. So we're going to talk about that, because I coach people all the time who have adult kids who think they get to vote on their parents' relationships. And it's like, really? Really? Why do they think that?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm going to start out very controversial.
Ooh.
And say, I know it is very controversial, because I believe if your children are under 18, you shouldn't involve them. I'm not going to say don't date. If you get have joint custody, that you're not going to have them with you anyway, that they're with the other parent, or you share with somebody on a regular basis, then date when they're not there. That's perfectly fine. But if it's going to take your time away from them before they're 18, I think it's valuable time that you really need to spend with them. And I know that it's really controversial. And I have clients I've coached that are in really happy relationships with a second person, and their kids adore them, and they've meshed everybody. But the challenge with getting together in a living situation or a married situation, they've done a lot of studies about it, and it's about a 30% chance of success. It's really a challenge.
Yeah.
To blend families. And I know successful ones, I really do, but it is really hard. the kids have already lost a person to divorce or death.
Mm-hmm.
And now they're sharing you with somebody else. And if that person truly isn't the right person for them, just because they're the right person for you doesn't mean they're the right person for them. And also I've watched where even if they're the right person for the kids, that doesn't mean they're necessarily the right person for the adult. Then they're going to get attached and they're going to lose that person again. So I know there's going to be lots of people shaking their heads and rolling their eyes, and maybe we'll get some controversial comments about it because I'm going to say this out. But I think the kids have to come first. And I know that you're lonely and you miss sex and you want to have adult conversations, which is why I'm saying if you wouldn't have them anyway, they're going to be with somebody else, then have that as your adult time. There's the controversial part is now over. I had to get it out of the way. I didn't even warn you ahead of time, Barry. I was going to be controversial.
I didn't run away. No, but a couple of things on that, because I totally understand and agree with you. That the thing is that, and this is an interesting question because I've just come up a couple of times, is yes, the children come first. Generally, once in a while, there's just an exception to that rule because sometimes there's a whole dysfunction with the family, which is a different story entirely. But in normal circumstances, yes, kids come first. So, sorry, adult, you may have an issue because you want to date and you want to have, as you said, you want to have sex and you miss that sort of feeling. But you got to take care of your kids first because they're family.
Under 18.
Yes, the most perfect person in the world. And the thing is, as you said, and I absolutely underscore that, is that the thing is that oftentimes with kids who've gone through divorce or loss of a parent, there's a hunger in them to bond with some other replacement person, basically, because they want that in their lives. Now, sometimes the family is so healthy and strong that the single parent works and the kids are okay. But that's that. And what I'm bringing to this is like the idea of being conscious about it, to be present to it, because that's the thing is most people aren't aware of this. And to date consciously is a key thing to do so that you choose a partner. And yes, letting your partner know, your date, your new person you're meeting, that you have kids is certainly fine up front. But to introduce them to kids, you have to hit a certain milestone, a requirement, a certain understanding before you can get to that point. Yeah. And let's just say this, it ain't on the first date. You know?
No. So I agree about having other adults in their life. And boy, we all hope that they have, if they're divorced, that they can co-parent really well, because I've seen that wonderfully, not very often, sadly, or grandparents or aunts or pretend aunts. I'm a pretend aunt to lots of people. I mean, I'm a blood aunt to people, but I have so many kids that aren't in my original family who call me aunt. They call me Auntie Chrissy. And I'm happy to be that in their life. And then there's big brothers and big sisters. There's ways to get them good adult role models of the opposite sex, right, to help them get that balance that's really important in the forming of children that are under 18. And so, yeah. So, okay, you've got under 18 kids and under 18 of the years of age, and you're dating, and the kids aren't meeting them because you're doing it when they're with somebody else. And I think at least 6 months, if not a year, because I tell people that before you can certainly make a monogamous committed relationship conversation with them and start to get to know them, but you really generally don't know another person really well until I think you've gone through all 4 seasons. So why would you introduce your children and have them get attached? And then you're like, well, I didn't know that about them, because that happens during dating a lot. And it's important to acknowledge that happens during dating a lot, to make sure that you've really ferreted out that this is the right person for you. They would blend with your family, that they have similar feelings about children as you do. Because I had a stepdaughter, I had a stepson, but he was grown and married and had a kid, actually 2. But my stepdaughter was only 16 when I married her dad. And I had no illusions about being her mom. She had a mom. She already had a mom. And we had that conversation about, well, she said, what should I call you? And I go, you get to pick. I mean, Christine's fine with me. I don't care. She goes, well, stepmom's kind of weird. And I said, I thought it was weird too, but if that's what, and she goes, no. She says, but I have a mom. Could I call you M2? Mom too. And I was like, that is like the coolest name. I love that. And I said, well, I don't have any kids. Can I call you D1? So we used to sign our cards to each other with those initials and numbers. It was so sweet. And so we worked it out. And I never tried to parent her. I would talk about, what was important to me, what was important to her, and how could we coexist in this house. And there were times I'd go, just have to bite my tongue because she was not my kid. Not my kid. And I didn't presume that she was my kid or that I was going to, she was already, but one of the really fun things, Tony, one day she was complaining about, well, how come Christine doesn't have to do, I don't remember what, some obtuse thing. And he goes, well, I think her mom did a really good job of raising her. And I'm still raising you. And I want you to be a good 30-year-old. So you need to go do the whatever the thing was. And she's like, okay, that was a good answer. Because my mom had done a good job of raising me.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a very delicate introduction. And so when people really want to do it and they've dated for a while and they really think this is the person, then you introduce them in like at the park or like Chuck E. Cheese, and they're a friend. They're a friend. So the kids will go, oh, it's a friend, that they don't see the future yet, because kids are very immediate. It's not that they're stupid. They're way better doing immediate than we are. So if you keep it in we're friends and now and then we're going to do stuff together, and then you get to see, does it work with them? Do their personalities? Because when my parents got divorced when I was 15 and my brother and sister were younger, and she dated a lot, actually. And one of the guys said, someday your kids are going to be really great adults. I just can't be around them while they're young.
Yeah.
It was the truth. We were challenging kids. So yeah, she had to give up on that until we were out of the house. Mm-hmm. There you go. So that's the thing. Do we blend? Do they blend? Because under 18, the kids have to come first. They just have to.
Yeah. There's a couple of things I want to speak to adding on to that, because I actually had a couple of opportunities in relationships where there were kids involved. One of them, which is a deeper relationship with the two, her kids, and she had two because the other relationship was only one, but this relationship, she was a widow. Her husband had committed suicide 5-6 years before we met. So the kids had been without a father, and there was no father in the picture, and she was sole, custodian of the kids at that point. And there were, I think, 8 and 10 at the time that we met. But she and I had been through a long journey in the same academic program together. So we got to become good friends before we dated. And I'm trying to remember how I met the kids first. Because yes, meet the kids outside the house is better, because then it doesn't embed in them that house they're coming to the house, that it's their space. Yeah. In fact, some ways, just to underscore that point, if you have kids, meet somebody new, and you want to introduce the kids to them at some point down the road after the 4 seasons, however that is, meeting them outside the house is better, because that way, when you meet them, if the kids get on with that new person, great. If they don't get on with them, great. But the thing is, it's not taking place inside the safe zone, which is their home. So that's a clear delineation to make sure you do that. So I want to say that up front. And the thing for me with that relationship is that I was absolutely like, their adult friend, or I could be a mentor in some ways, but never a father figure. Even though there was no father in the picture, it wasn't appropriate energetically. And the thing is that the son was younger. He was a video game fanatic, and I wasn't that great at it anymore. I done it when I was a lot younger, but that was the thing we bonded over. It was actually World of Warcraft what he was doing. I remember the game vividly. But it's like that became a thing. We got to hang out together, and so I get to watch him and almost in a way be his student, because he was a master player at this stuff. And even though 10 years old, 8 years old. And it's interesting because this is going back a long time ago now. So now, her daughter, who was 10, who's now an adult, who's now married with a kid of her own, we're friends on Facebook, and it's just like, okay, just a friend on Facebook. There's nothing in there in a way that has any sort of judgment or issue. Now, the other relationship where I was with a woman who had a daughter, she and her husband were going through a divorce at the time. So her daughter was very confused anyway, which didn't help. So she and I did not have it was very messy, to be blunt. And so I saw how it doesn't work well,
Mhm.
even though the daughter knew, and I'm trying to think, the daughter was, I think she was about 12 at the time, 11 or 12. But she definitely had an issue with me because I wasn't her dad, and her dad wasn't really out of the picture yet, even though there was physically different locations. So that was really messy. So I've learned both the positive and the negative experiences of this time. And yes, kids under 18 especially, I agree with you with that sort of thing. The funny thing I was thinking of earlier was when you're dating somebody whose kids are in their 20s and 30s, it's almost like you compare dating notes with them because they're dating and so are you. It's kind of interesting.
Mhm.
And so there's a sense of ease that can happen when the kids are older, because as you said, like with one of the ones you're relationship with, the older one was married and had a kid of their own, so they were not involved in the picture in any way. And so in that context, when you're with somebody whose kids are adults, this conversation may not be relevant as much to you or to them, because in some ways with that relationship, they're like, oh, you're dating somebody, fine, because they know what it's like because they're already doing it themselves. So really a lot of times what we're talking about in this conversation is for the younger kids under 18, maybe even under 15 or under 10, who are more immediate, as you said, but also impressionable, or I should say they attach, that's the word, attach more easily. So absolutely, if you're the parent of those children, remember that they are, in this sense, in the conversation of relationship, very innocent, as in they don't know certain things. So you may presume things about them which aren't accurate. So to remember they are innocent in the sense that they don't have information or context or understanding of being around separate people and different things and dating, because that's not their knowledge area yet. So to beware that and this is something we talk about all the time, is that you're demonstrating to them how to be out in the world, how to be around other people, and how to be a good parent, because they take that information in automatically as almost like sponges. So they learn by what you're doing. And so if you do things where you're dating lots of different people, the model that they're learning from may not be the healthiest one they get. So definitely when you're exploring the dating world and you have kids, keep those worlds, in quotes, separate enough so you can enjoy your adult time with somebody new, especially if you do have an ex who's taking care of the kids, or maybe your parent is to take the kids, or your brother or sister to take care of the kids. So you're free to go and do things. Make that intentional, so that way the kids are taken care of, ideally and joyfully and happily. So they're just playing with somebody else, the neighbor's kids, whatever it is, where they are fully engrossed. So you can be free of that energetically to go and date as if you had never had any kids, in the sense that you're free of that. Because if you're dragging your kids' energy into the date, that's the other part. If you're dragging what's going on with the kids and the school and everything into the date, you're not really present to the new person either, which isn't really beneficial to you or them. So understanding how to date in a way that keeps your adult time separate from your parent time can be very healthy as well.
Yes. And I remembered that. I didn't remember there were two, but I remembered there was one, so that you could talk about a personal experience about it for sure. Yeah. One of the really hard things in the widowed community of people that have younger children is for them to find childcare if they want to date. And often it's a babysitter, which is fine. I mean, you're allowed to leave your kids with babysitters.
Yes.
But it's an expense, and to think about, you're still vetting people to see if you want to even see them a second time, where we always talk about how, the expense for the guy, because usually he pays for whatever you're eating or drinking. And to think that he might have to pay for a babysitter too, and she might have to pay for a babysitter too, which is why I tell him to really make sure you've had some text conversations, some phone conversations, even video conversations, to talk about some of the really important things, including your kids, and to find out how the other person is about it. Because one of the really successful couples I know, she has 5 and he had never had any. Wow. And I have to tell you, they've been together now for, I think, close to 6 years. It couldn't be better. It's wonderful. But it is so rare. It's rare, like getting struck by lightning. So, and they were long distance and did so much talking and getting together as well as they could without the kids initially, because she's like, oh my God, really? And it's a lot. And he's like, yeah, it's a lot. And it's just all come together. Like there was this magic thing or something, but to lay the foundation. Now, the other thing, because I have a good friend, who is in his 70s and has a daughter that's married in her 30s and a son that's 14.
Mm.
And he hasn't have time, he can date, but I have to tell you, one of his challenges that I didn't know him, I wouldn't have thought about this, that when he dates his age group, he runs into women like me who go, yeah, I've done the minor. I don't want to do that again. It was fine, but I choose now not to date people with minor children that live with them. And I want to know why they don't live with them if they don't, because that's pretty icky too.
Right.
So then when he wants to date somebody who has children of the same age, they're a lot younger. And it is a quandary for him. It really is. So to think, when you have children in your life and what age group you're in and how are you going to find people to date? And he just has lots of friends. He has lots of friends, women friends, works really well for them, not so much for him because he'd really like a relationship. But it's not happening because of this. That's a big stumbling block for him. So I'm just putting it out there that if you're running into the same thing, I feel your pain. I've watched him for a couple of years now trying to figure this out. He's not a client. I just know him as a friend, but it's a challenge. But his son is under 18 and he has to come first. And so, how do you find a suitable partner that works for both of you? It's a challenge. So there you go. There's that.
That's another piece. Actually, I'll speak to that for a second from the male perspective. Is because clearly women generally don't have children of their own past a certain point in their life. Their clock sort of ticks differently for men. We can still be parents later on. And the idea for me of having a baby now, like being a new parent to somebody, just feels so unaligned to me. Because the thing is, it means, I'll be in my 80s when they're in their 20s. That doesn't feel anything like what I would want to do. So I understand the sense of like having a younger child who's already born. Don't just extreme situation, but the idea of being when you have a child that is still young enough that requires a lot of on-site care and responsibility because they're not free and adult yet, is a requirement that does require full focus. And it is challenging to do that and date somebody else unless you, like you said, have other people who can take care of them. But and I understand with the widow community, like you were saying earlier, just go back to that piece for a second, because again, the woman I met when she was a widow, it is a challenge to, we should say, it's not a like a simple step process to decide how you date and meet somebody. You've got to really figure out for yourself what's true for you, what works for your kids, and what is aligned to you both benefit from this in the right way. Because again, and this is also true for widowed people as well, is oftentimes they are looking for something they don't have at the moment. So there's almost a need they have that's been driven just as much as there is for the child or children. Mm-hmm. So to navigate this from a place of consciousness and being aware and making conscious choices rather than coming from sort of animal need, like you need to have this, want to have this just to feel better. It requires some self-will and self-attention to say, what do I really want? Is this just a fix, or is this what I really want to have? And to discern for yourself, as much as you may be heartbroken still and wounded and feeling like you need someone to fill that gap that your deceased partner left behind, it's going to take time, and you got to be willing to take the time. And again, if you have kids that are underage, they need to be respected and taken care of as well, because they may be going through their own grief process, their own challenge of understanding how to be and navigate through life where they're missing a parent. So your primary role, in a sense, being the solo parent, is to really have a clear and comfortable relationship with them, so they get you and the openness to each other to talk about the challenges of missing that person. So when you meet somebody else, they're not going to try and what's the word, like, shoehorn them into that spot. That was the word looking for. Because what can happen. So both for the adults and the children, navigate this with care and consciousness and communication, so you know where you are and what you want.
Yes. And another challenge in the widowed community is when they have adult children, as I alluded to in the beginning.
Yes.
They, lots of times, not always, lots of times, have a big negative opinion about their surviving parent dating. And they have a lot to say about it. And they can make it really rough. It's sad. And often, not always, but often they're in their own relationship, married and kids and happy, and they're still like, oh no, 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 no. You're replacing mom or
Yeah.
dad. Does that mean
Yeah.
you don't love them anymore? But we already liked our mom and dad. You want us to like another person?
Mhm.
And I've coached this a lot, especially for the two widowers sites that I write for. They send me lots of questions about this. And what I tell the surviving parent to say is, I will never, and you have to say this out loud, I will never forget them. I will never stop loving them, ever. Because even if they haven't said it out loud, it's often a worry.
Mhm.
And then say, look, I'm so thrilled that you're happy, and I want you to be happy in your relationship, and I need the same thing. I need companionship. I have so many years left, and I think it's an honor that I want to fall in love again, because being in love with your mom or dad was really great. It was great. And I want that again. And I can't tell you it's turned every single one of them around. Some of them are still poopy about it. It's
Yeah.
helped a lot, though. It's really helped a lot. And then the big thing most of the kids will say is, don't introduce me till you're serious. I don't want to get attached. I don't want to be the judge. You
Right.
do you for a year or 6 months or however long. And then if you think, then okay, I'm happy to meet them. But only, and so that's the part they get a vote about, how it affects them personally when the person's going to come in their life, but not what their parent gets to do or not do.
Mhm.
And it's been a lot of conversations about that. So I thought I really needed to speak about it, because they can be really pissy about it.
Absolutely. And that's the thing I want to underscore, that again, it is about having that clear communication. That's the other part, is we are dangerous when we start assuming things about somebody else. And so when you start assuming things about your kids, or if you're the kids assuming stuff about your parent that you haven't communicated or haven't asked the questions to find out, is where you get into dangerous territory. And I mean, emotionally dangerous. Let's be clear about that.
Yeah.
But the sense is like, yes, to be in a place where you don't want to break the hearts of your kids because you're now dating again, even though because their missing parent won't be replaced, and make it clear. And that's the thing, you got to be clear. I underscore and I adamantly agree with you that yes, to communicate that you're not looking to replace the person who passed away. You're looking to move on in your life to have something new without forgetting who that person was. Because yes, if you've got kids or older who have had that lifespan with that parent who's gone, their grief journey may not be complete the same time yours is. That's another piece, by the way.
That's a
We
very
talk
good
about,
point.
we talked about grief in another episode way before, but just to recap quickly, I talk about grief in this way as well, and same as you do, is that grief is not a scheduled or scripted process. It takes its own time, it goes its own way, and it's different for different people. So you as a parent with kids, your grief journeys aren't matching. When you're at peace with it, they may be upset. When they're resentful, you might be feeling guilty. All these things will happen different times, because that's the way grief works. It's the way you process things individually. And so to be around a new person can trigger or push on the buttons of grief that you may think you're done with, but your kids aren't. So it's important to have a really willing and open and vulnerable communication with each other before you start dating, or even when you are dating, just saying, this is what's going on. I meet somebody, I'm starting feelings for them, but I want to let you know what's going on, because I don't want, what I want to have is a loving space with you guys, regardless of what I'm doing, so that you don't feel left out or feel that I'm betraying the memory of, your parent. So to have that understanding and knowing that grief does it at its own course is part of the journey, it's part of the process. I did a lot of grief counseling in my spiritual counseling work, and in the family dynamic, to realize that grief has its own unique style, play, effectiveness with each person is fundamental as well. It's a vital piece to understand. It's not the same for everybody.
That was the most compassionate way to talk about it. Thank you, Barry. It was lovely. Because one of the things we talk about in the widow community is triggers. And often we don't even know it's going to be a trigger that's going to make us burst into tears or have this huge wave of missing. And it just pops up and we don't know. And sometimes it can be around traditions or holidays. And so involving the adult children in, well, what are the things that are really important to you that we keep? And then whoever the new person is that's coming in are bringing their own, maybe, or maybe they don't care, but the ones who care are bringing their own traditions and holiday. And is there a way to do them one at a time? Is there a way to combine them? I've seen all of that happen pretty successfully because people talked about it. That assuming thing that makes an ass out of you and me. I mean, it's really true in this case so much, because that's what I've heard often from the widowed men. Well, but I feel this way. Don't the kids feel this way? I go, check. They might. Check, because they might not. And you're going to get so blindsided if you don't ask. And especially as female types, even if we're in agreement, we like being asked. We like being asked. Yeah, I like that idea. Oh, yeah, that's a good idea. You guys go along easier than we do. We like, it's not like you don't like being asked your opinion, but even if we are matching completely, we just like being asked and we like to confer. It just works for us. So I tell the widowed men this all the time, just ask. So I was thinking about this, or what do you think about that? And listen, to what they say, and then see, is there a place that there's some differences, and how can you come to a middle ground where you combine something, or we'll do this on this day and this, or we'll alternate year to year. And I knew enough, thank goodness, ahead of time to do this with my stepdaughter. And I kept hearing the things that were happening with her friends and my friends who weren't doing it this way of, well, tell me what goes on in your house at Christmas and Thanksgiving. And I'll tell you the kind of things I'd love to include, because it really was, I moved into their house, which can be awkward.
Yeah.
And it did feel like my house, but I had to work at it. I had to work at having that happen. And the best thing that happened was when she graduated from high school, she wanted to go to college and wanted her own apartment, and she still had a bedroom. But when she moved out, I said, so I'm going to make some changes. She's like, I don't care. But she cared when she was still living there.
Yeah.
Okay. They weren't a big deal to me. So that's the thing I had to decide. What were the things that were really a big deal to me? One of the big things is I have this gorgeous chrome and glass dining room table that I adore, and I have carted it with me everywhere I move. And Tony had a pool table, and he didn't need it anymore. It was really fine, because everybody says, oh, he got rid of it, Christine. He really didn't. He was really done with it. And I had another spot I'd seen. There was this other area my table would have fit. And he goes, no, I want the dining room table there. And I said, Bree, your dad's doing this. Have a conversation with him. And he said, I'm doing it for me. And she's like, okay, because I wanted to make sure it wasn't looked at as me, even though his friends all teased that I made him get rid of it. I liked pool. I thought it would have been fine to have it. I would have moved it to the other area though. If if it all had happened differently. So that was the thing that I think got us off on a pretty good foot, that I'm the grown up. She's hormonal 16. I go, I was that. I know what that feels like. Sure, I can be the more adult here, because I'm not feeling like a 16-year-old going crazy with hormones. So I would have these conversations with her periodically, just checking in. How you doing with that? And I could tell she appreciated it, because she got to compare and hear that other people weren't doing it. Yeah. So you do this with your adult kids. How you doing? How you doing with this? We're thinking about doing this for Thanksgiving. We're thinking about doing this for the birthdays. We're thinking about doing this for Christmas or Hanukkah or Rosh Hashanah or whatever it is, are your traditional things, Groundhog's Day. I don't care, that you say, this is what we've done in the past. Maybe they'll love it. Oh my God, I never thought of that. Or, oh, I could never do that. Or I need to combine mine. But keep talking about it. Don't assume. Well, I'm so glad you made that point too. I can't emphasize it enough, because it really does you jump into a problem most of the time when you assume.
It is the challenge, because it's, in a way, it's almost like feeling that you're being thrown into the water and you've got to swim to keep up with everybody else who's already swimming for the last hour. It's like, it's a challenge. So absolutely having, first of all, if you're the one coming in, asking questions, but also if you're the one who's letting having somebody come in, is being available to answer all the questions, as silly as they might be, because the thing is, they don't know what's normal for you, and you've made assumptions. You've done it so long, you forget to think about it. So when it happens, they're like, "What do I do with this?" And didn't think to tell you. So having that, again, presence of mind, being conscious, being in the moment to recognize what's going on, so you can have a conversation and talk about things, so there's understanding and answers made and questions asked and everything else, is what helps make this smoother. Because there's the challenge oftentimes is to become assumptive about the other person, because they should be like your ex was. Dangerous territory.
Yes.
So, but with the kids especially, that's the other part too, is the kids can oftentimes carry this automatic reversal of that, where they don't accept the person no matter what. And so it's a sense of just being okay with what is until it changes, and being patient.
Oh yeah. And so if we go to the real extreme with adult children, I've watched this happen too, that you might have to just end up the two of you. If the adult children truly, for their own reasons, the person being brought in, is not a horrible person. They're not doing horrible things. They don't have a horrible past. There's no concrete you could bring as evidence to a court to say this person shouldn't come and be part of our family. It's just being pissy. There's times when now the adult parent, divorced or widowed, has to say, gosh, I'm sorry. I really want to do this for my happiness. And boy, I've watched both ways, where the kids got their way and they gave up a really great relationship. I have one right now. They're both so sad. I'm coaching her, but they're so sad. And there's no way around it. They're holding the grandkids hostage. It's really sad.
That's the dark side for sure.
And that's we all agree there's no other choice. And it's so sad and so unnecessary. And it's just because there's a poopy person. So I don't know. Sorry?
That's a technical term.
The poopy person. Yeah. That's my therapy term for them. They're a poopy person. She called her that. And I was like, okay, I'm going to use that. So you do your best. You stay as a grown-up as you can, and you explain in the both sides, all 3 or 4 or 12 or however many people there are. And what I've said is, if you want to get together with me on the phone, or you want to go to some sort of a family, you have to go to a family therapist. This is what they specialize is MFT, marriage family therapist. They get everybody in the same room, whether it's a Zoom room or an in-person, body's in the same room. And they make sure everybody gets their turn, everybody gets to say their thing. And then they are like a mediator, like when you go to court, and see if they can work it out. And you need everybody to show up. And that's the challenge. Will everybody show up? Yeah. Because the rift in families I think it's tragic. This one I'm watching happen it's tragic. These two people who lost the loves of their lives to death, found each other and can't stay together. It's really sad. It's really sad. So that's the extreme.
Yeah, because in the context of this, again, what we said already is that because we're not navigating this on our own, especially with young kids. Well, it's true with adult kids. As you said, it's the grandkids being held hostage. So the adult kids are definitely not helpful in this situation. Is that it almost you almost have to, and I say this carefully, I feel like you almost have to divorce your family to move on. In a sense, because that's the thing is that if they are not willing to change and you are willing to change, that's a different conversation entirely, independently of dating, because that's a different dynamic between the two of you. Because sometimes, and again, it's situations I've seen before, where the remaining parent gets blamed by the kids. Like somehow it's their fault that their partner left, died, whatever it was. And so sometimes there's no way back to that way not without seeking outside help. So yes, MFT therapist, guide, counselor, coach, whatever it is, to help navigate that place, because the relationship between parent and child, if it's dysfunctional, is not working, adding dating to that isn't easy. So understanding that's where you stand, and to gloss over things is a mistake. It's like it's worth uncovering what's in the way, so you can be free, both of you, both the adult and the child or children, to be doing what you want to do, whether it's together or separate. That's why this conversation we're having is not a simple, A, B, C steps you take no matter what. What we're talking about here is we're trying to cover a lot of spectrum here, because there's so many different relationship paradigms, of course, because they're all different and unique, different age kids, different separation with the adults, different dating experiences, different situations too. So understanding that you've got to figure this out for yourself and for your family before you move on to dating. And if you're the outsider, this is the other part too. If you're the outsider, the one who's coming into the situation, know that the person you're with may not be able to take you in because it's because of the kids, not because of you. This is the thing, though. It doesn't help to resent anybody in this.
That's true.
It doesn't help to try to fix it and navigate it is the other part. And this is another piece, by the way. If you're the outside person coming into the relationship and there's a different dysfunction going on, that's making it harder for you to date. You may want to suggest to your dating partner that they seek some sort of help before you date, rather than trying to be the therapist yourself. Don't even try it. Even if you are a therapist, don't try and do that. It's one of the things I talk about being a coach is like dating for me. I'm going to be careful to take that off when I'm dating because it gets in the way. So if you're someone who's got training and you then come into a relationship, you meet somebody and you see the dysfunction in that family, don't try to fix it. It's not your job. No. Refer to somebody who can fix it, who's neutral, who's not part of the conversation. And maybe later on, maybe you can get into a relationship with them, but maybe not. And key thing is to be okay either way.
I'm so glad you said that out loud, because I do watch that. Oh, they have these problems and I'm going to love them out of it.
Yeah, right.
No. And especially if you see the problem ahead of time and then you go anyway. Oh, yeah, I don't think that's a good idea. I mean, certainly stuff could come up, which is why it's important to get to know this person first and then get to know the peripheral people second and see how's everybody doing. I mean, I married into somebody who had 2 ex-wives. I asked lots of questions. I met them ahead of time before I said yes about marrying this man, because it was a lot of he said, do you want to meet them all at once? No, I'd like little groups of people. Could we start out with the nice one who will probably like each other? So we still do like each other a lot, cousin Zelda and I. But it was a lot. It was a lot. I knew. And he was so upfront about it in the beginning. He told me all the players and all the stuff. And he was so gracious about it. I mean, I learned everybody's other side, but he didn't have to tell me. I could learn. And it was okay. I got to the place where it was okay, but I did lots of detective work ahead of time. Lots of seeing how did I feel ahead of time. Because it wasn't just falling in love, and it certainly wasn't going to just be the 2 of us. There were tons of people that were involved all the time.
That is huge. Yeah. I mean, it's funny because that conversation about meeting the exes, sometimes you learn things about the person you're dating which you didn't expect to learn. So it can work both ways.
Well, I did. Yeah. What I really learned was everything he said was the truth. I never heard anything different. I just learned more. But yeah, I admired when he told me because it all sounded like the truth. And then every time I heard more, it was just more of the same of what he said. And just like, wow, he so knew himself and was transparent and understood how the honesty was imperative to me. So he was really careful about that, I think, probably because of all the he kept saying, I've never been asked these kind of questions before in my life. Didn't really have a Southern accent, but I gave him one. He had
I was going to say,
yeah. Yeah, boy, I knew this was going to be such an important, fully packed conversation. And the thing that I think is important to say too is, as you've seen, we've touched on so many pieces. There's so many pieces, and each one of these pieces could be a whole conversation on their own. Yeah. So if you're contemplating dating someone with children, if you have children and you're contemplating dating, if you're in the middle of dating with children, somewhere they do or you do, and if they're under 18 or over 18, and you're like, I never thought about any of these things or some of these things, then you need to reach out to Barry and I, because we could have a whole conversation about your particular situation. Because I can't imagine you don't have one or some of these things going on, whether you know it or not. And the scariest thing is to not know what you don't know.
Oh yeah.
And we're hoping we at least pointed out that you're like, oh, I didn't know that. Maybe I do need to have a conversation about that. Or, oh, I wish I'd known that. And I'm in the middle of this mess and I need to have a conversation with somebody. Right?
Absolutely. That's the thing. I mean, actually, to be honest, I would say if you don't know what you don't know, you're oblivious. So you may not be that scared after all. Just to be
Yeah,
clear.
maybe not.
But
But now we've shown you.
no, but the thing is, when you start recognizing what you don't know, that's when it gets really dangerous, because you start to go, oh my God, right, I now know what I don't know. That's not good to know. You know, it's like you want to move into knowing these things. So it is a challenge to navigate, but definitely it's worth going through the journey to get to the other side, which is why you and I do what we do.
And it's the goal of our podcast often to say, maybe you don't know this, and maybe it's something that could bite you in the butt if you don't do something about it ahead of time. And that's why we're here.
Yes.
So if you'd like to talk to either one of us, we are here and ready, willing and able to help you through this journey through dating, period. And certainly when you throw children in the mix, because they're going to be around forever. That's the thing. They're going to be a parent forever. So if you'd like to get a hold of me, the best way is through my website, which is www.theperfectcatch.com. And you can click on what's holding you back from love. And that'll give you access to my online calendar, and you can schedule a complimentary conversation with me. And we can talk about how it's been with kids in your life or in your significant other person that you're dating's life. You can also sign up for my newsletter and stay up on what I'm doing in my coaching life, and well as you'll get a repeat of this podcast. You can also send me an email through Christine@theperfectcatch.com, and I'm always answer them within 24 hours. And at the bottom of my website, you can click on all my social media links, and my YouTube's fixed. It's all fixed. Yay! We were having a fight with YouTube, and now we're all kissed and made up. So you can click on Facebook and YouTube and Instagram and Pinterest and Threads and Twitter, X, and
Instagram.
LinkedIn. Instagram. Oh, I always forget one.
Yeah, they're all in there.
They're all in there. They're all the little symbols, the little birds, and all the little symbols are all there. She did a fabulous job.
Magic.
It feels magic to me, I got to tell you. So Barry, tell people how to reach you.
Similarly, I have a website and I have social media links and an email as well. So my website is my name, which is barryselby.com. And I have 2 links on the homepage. You can click on the first one at the top of the screen. There's a link to get on my calendar and have a conversation with me up front to see if we wanted to work together. What's going on? You can share what's going on. I'll give you some guidance and offer some next steps, and we can see where it wants to go and what you want to do with that. At the bottom of the home screen is a link to my email list. You can join that, and you'll get emails from me every week, which include replays of this show. So if you're not catching the podcast every week, you can definitely catch the show in your inbox every week, which is great.
Yeah.
If you want to send me an email, you can send me one at barry@barryselby.com. If you want to reach out to me, I do respond the same way as Christine within 24 hours, except on weekends sometimes. I'll just be clear about that. My weekends are my own. But I'm going to get back to you. All my social media links are my name, except for Instagram and Threads, which is the real Barry Selby. But otherwise, it's Barry Selby on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter /X, Pinterest, etc. Cover all those. And of course, my quiz is up and running. And I also got some feedback from somebody. I have a quiz, which is you go to barryselby.com/quiz. There you go. Thank you for putting on the screen. That is a relationship readiness assessment. It's to see where you are and where you're going. So if you have questions that you're not sure about, or you wonder what's in the way, take the quiz and find out. It doesn't cost you anything. It's a little bit of investment of your time. Answer the questions honestly, and you get direct feedback and clarity of what's going on. But I made a little change because a friend of mine who was looking at the quiz said, you know what, those pictures, guy, use a Wizard of Oz thematic as a if you do the quiz, you understand why. And the 4 characters I created using AI generated images, he said they're also serious and look so stern. And I didn't realize that. I didn't think about it. I just made them look good looking images. So I had to go back and create some new images. So I've got 4 new images for the 4 different characters I use that are now a lot happier and smiling. So if you take the quiz a second time, they'll be different. If you haven't changed it before, you'll see them as they are now. So just to be for fun and get fun and giggles.
Well, they fit you because you're such a happy, smiley person.
Yeah, thank you.
And you get to see us happy and smiling every week on Thursdays at 1 o'clock Pacific and 4 o'clock Eastern and all the times in between. And we'd love for you to watch and subscribe and share it with other people. So you can watch us on Roku and on the other streaming services. And then you can listen.
You can also watch us on YouTube and Facebook. That's where we go live on Thursday. So you can do that as well.
Yeah, live or Memorex. You can watch us later. Or you can take us with you if you're working out or walking or shopping. We're on Spotify and Apple Podcasts.
Mhm.
So we would love to have you like us and share us and subscribe and tell your friends and family about us so that they can help, we can help them with their dating and relationship queries.
Absolutely. So thanks for
And our
watching. So
smiley happy faces. Sorry, what were you going to say?
I say thanks for watching and for listening. We appreciate you being here.
We really appreciate it. Thank you so much. And our smiley happy faces will be back next week.
Indeed. We'll see you
Bye
then.
for now.
Bye.